He's Seth Davis from CBS, the college basketball analyst, also Sports Illustrated writer. I mentioned that this is March Madness right now, Seth. I don't know how March Madness is any better than what we've seen so far during the regular season the last 6 weeks.
Well, in a lot of ways, Dan, it might be even better because, unlike March Madness and certainly unlike college football, teams aren't getting eliminated from anything. That's kind of the both sides of the coin for college basketball this time of year. This is college football. That baseline out-of-bounds play at the end of regulation against Illinois knocks them out of the national championship chase. Now they have a chance to go into Ohio State and put on an impressive show and 5 overtime games and half-court shots. It's been definitely one of the craziest seasons I can remember.
But we say that every year. The last couple of years, haven't we gone into March Madness and say, boy, this is as crazy as I remember it, and we're going to do that again this year?
Well, I would substitute crazy for wide open. I think that's what it really is. If you look over the years, Dan, it really is the exception that you have a prohibitive favorite going into the tournament, or even a strong favorite like Kentucky last year. I think about North Carolina in 2009. I think about Billy Donovan's second team at Florida in 2007. But generally speaking, it's a pretty wide open extravaganza, which again is why it makes it so fun and so unpredictable. I think one thing that's happening this year is you're seeing just a lot of teams who are not only ranked number one, Dan, but ranked in the top 5 losing, and you're just seeing a lot of crazy games. Maybe it's because more of these games are on. Maybe it's because everything goes viral nowadays. But it's been a lot of fun, I can tell you that.
Do we have 4 number 1 seeds?
Well, we're going to have to. By definition, I think you would probably look at Indiana, Duke, Miami. I would have said Arizona until they lost last night, so maybe Michigan would be the second. I think my guess, we're still 5 weeks away, is that we'll probably have 2 number 1 seeds from the Big Ten. I just feel like that league is so far and away the best conference in the country. You got to sort of have the right combinations, the right dominoes to fall. But that to me would not surprise me at all if the Big Ten got 2 bids, because nobody else is really making, maybe Duke because of their overall resume, but nobody's really making a real strong claim on number 1 seed.
Not everybody has these one and dones. I don't know how many one and dones we have this year, but that used to be the knock on why the game itself or the quality of basketball is flawed a little bit. Why so inconsistent with these teams?
Well, I just think that it's parity. We've seen it. I've said for several years, borrowing from Tom Friedman's best-selling book, "The World is Flat." I think we've seen that for a number of years. You get to the NCAA tournament, if you watch a 2 versus 15 game or a 3 versus 14 game, if you did not know what the seeds were and know anything about these teams and just flipped it on, you wouldn't really see that much of a difference. So it's, a combination of all the things that we talk about. When you have the best players going pro, then the marquee programs can't stock up on major, incredible blue-chip talent. It also, Dan, has to do with the vagaries of each individual class. This freshman class, Kentucky does have a few one-and-dones, but they're just not as good as last year's freshman class. And next year's freshman class coming in is considered very, very strong. So, that kind of goes up and down as well.
He's Seth Davis from Sports Illustrated, CBS, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. You got North Carolina, you got Kansas. Some of these powers that we're so used to them reloading. Now it's more rebuilding.
Yeah, and Kentucky as well. Now, Kentucky's getting better. They had a nice win at Ole Miss. They're playing at Florida tomorrow night, so we'll really see how good they really are. The SEC is really, really bad, and I think Kentucky is benefiting from that, and they seem to be getting better at the right time. And these are the cycles. Those are different situations. Kansas has been just had a remarkable week and a half, and they got a tough one at home tonight against Kansas State. You want to talk about a must-win, but I'll say this, Dan. Kansas's loss at TCU last week, and I've put it out there on Twitter, and I think that's the biggest regular season upset in college basketball since Virginia over Chaminade in 1982. You're talking about TCU, which was 0-8 in the Big 12, losing games by 20, 30 points. Horrible, a bad basketball team, and a Kansas team that until a week and a half ago people were saying as a favorite to win the national championship, and they go in there and they had 13 points at halftime and just played awful basketball. And yet I still look at Kansas, despite this losing streak and say, you know what? They have all the pieces to get to a Final Four. They just have to figure some things out. If there's ever a year for that to happen, or let me throw this out, Dan. I've said for a long time, it's only a matter of time before a 16 beats a 1 in the NCAA tournament. It's never happened. We've had a couple of 15-over-2s. We've had a couple of scares with the number 1 seed. It's never happened. I've been saying it for a number of years. I think Rick Pitino said the other day that it feels like if that's ever going to happen, this would be the year.
We ever talk about reducing the number of teams in the field? We keep adding. but to make the regular season mean something where you're really stressing about winning these games, is there any talk about reducing, say, let's lop off 12 to 14 schools?
No. That is not. Once that train leaves the station, it's hard to put it back. What I would say is, I think we dodged a huge bullet when they considered going to 96 teams. For a while, it looked like that's where it was headed, which I think would have been an absolute disaster. I think it would have hurt the tournament to have that many teams, that many games. So, they've left it at 68. I think those first round back-to-back doubleheaders have produced some really good games these last 2 years. And you know what, Dan? To people who like college basketball and follow college basketball, especially once the Super Bowl's over, I think the regular season still means a lot. I think people see the context, they see the excitement, they see the passion, they understand that it all builds to the NCAA tournament, and I think that's, people love the NCAA tournament, and they seem to be enjoying the regular season, so that seems to be where we are.
Yeah, I'd just like to see a little less there would mean a whole lot more. And the fact that they're even considering they even talked about going to 96 schools.
Some very smart people were advocating it, but you know what? I think, thank God for the fans, because it was enough of a trial balloon and a walk up that the idea of being inventory is the big buzzword, right? So if you have more inventory, and the NCAA was redoing its contract, it ended up back with CBS and Turner, but there were enough people looking seriously at that possibility that it was pretty frightening, and the fans spoke up during that process loud and clear in full consensus. Don't kill this event, don't kill this sport. And thank goodness they didn't do it.
Best guest, number 1 player selected this year.
In the draft?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be Nerlens Noel from Kentucky. He's a dynamic shot blocker. He's probably never going to be a great offensive player, but in an NBA draft that really doesn't have many great offensive players, I think it's pretty clear that he's going to be that guy. The guy who might end up being the best pro of them all is, in my view, Dan, Anthony Bennett, freshman at UNLV. A lot of people compare him to Larry Johnson, but to me that's only because he plays for UNLV. Yeah. To me, he looks more of a Glenn Robinson type. But it's a very, very weak NBA draft. I'm not going to lie.
Good to visit with you as always, Seth. Thanks for joining us.
Always good talking to you. Enjoy.
Seth Davis, Sports Illustrated and CBS.